Nice to meet you, Brandon. My name is Tim.
Nice to meet you, Tim.
All right, let's get going. A fellow Moore Park College alumni.
Oh, nice. Right on.
Yeah, we're in Ventura, so that's where I went before I transferred out.
Nice.
So we're celebrating the new album Echoes and Cocoons out March 11th.
That's correct.
How do you feel about it, bud?
I am really excited about it. I made an album during a very strange period of time in the world, and it's not just that I made a record that I'm excited about. It's that I made something that I think speaks authentically to the place where I was in amongst all of the, the maelstrom, I guess we could say, that was the world during that period of time. It was recorded, I think over about 6 months, during kind of like the height of lockdown. So there really wasn't much else to do. But I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to express myself musically and creatively during that period of time, because I feel like inspiration comes from all over the place. It's not just like, I'm happy today, I'm sad today. It's not as kind of binary as that. It's much more complex. So it's almost as if the more complex the situation is, the higher the potential for art to emerge. So that's one thing, if we can draw any kind of silver lining out of the experience of COVID as artists, is that it was nothing if not inspiring. For all, the circumstances were fucking horrific, but the way that I think artists, creative people make sense of the world is by expressing themselves and telling what we see and those types of things. So this record is all of those things and quite a lot more.
Awesome. The previous single, Dime in My Dryer, it caught my eye. It caught what was said about it and where it came from you caught my eye. You had said that these are the things that are louder when the world is quiet, or maybe I'm paraphrasing it. And when you slowed down, I'm imagining in this COVID time, it was a different type of slowdown than normal, like just a break from the business or a break from, everyday life. What were the things that were going on internally while creating, that song, or just in general during that period?
It was in my personal life, it was a moment where things kind of, especially in the early days of lockdown, like everything did get literally more quiet. There were no cars on the street. There were nobody, all that, the kind of like hustle and bustle and the chatter of everyday life like stopped for these weird, eerie, Twilight Zone-esque periods of time. There were moments where it was like downright spooky, like some of the pictures you'd see of like wildlife starting to emerge back into like city streets and things like that. And it happens really fast. That's the cool part. But all of that stuff died down, and then I was left really with just, it was basically just like my partner and I, my girlfriend and I were just here at the house, and we got a lot closer than we had been before, and we did really well for quite a few months, maybe like 6 months, and then it started to kind of like fray, like the edges of our relationship, maybe some of the unconscious material that had started to like emerge in our relationship, and we actually like broke up for a period of time. And then all of a sudden I was alone in amongst this weird experience. It was just me with my thoughts and my pen and my sketchbook, or and it occurred to me that she was in a way like a point of light amongst like this sort of fog of what was happening. She was like the lighthouse in a lot of ways, and maybe I was that way to her too, if if I'm lucky. And so it occurred to me that uh, there's so much sort of societal and cultural noise happening every single day, even amongst the pandemic. There's all of this like chatter that's constantly spinning around, a little bit like, a dryer with all of the stuff just swirling around, swirling around, swirling around, all that chatter, essentially noise. And then there was one point of light or one sort of dime clinking around in the process. And it created like a focus point for me. And long story short, sorry, we ended up getting back together after, gosh, it wasn't that long, maybe like less than a month. And we became even closer than we were. And so I guess the experience of being in lockdown with her and then apart and then back together, it created this scenario where a metaphor emerged for me that was kind of simple and almost mundane. The idea of the dime clinking around the dryer, like that point of light amongst a lot of noise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I get it. And it's a beautiful story and analogies.
Thank you.
um, but above all, a better universe. I've listened to that song uh, at least 50 times, and I watched the video over and over again,
Yeah.
and I love it. It touches. I'm weird. Touching me spiritually. Touching me spiritually. I feel.
Yeah.
Um, what is the video in the song the same? What I'm getting from it is like a battle for your heart,
Mm-hmm.
or like someone's using you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where is the inspiration from that song?
Yeah, you're not far off. There's When I wrote the lyric to it, I was referring to, I guess we could call them a public figure, and I'll leave it as kind of obscured as that because it doesn't matter who the person was, but the public figure represented to me someone who just uh, was unabashedly gaslighting large swaths of people, and I recognized the experience and seeing the attempt pointed at me and pointed at everyone in our culture to sort of pull the wool over our eyes and gaslight us in the most egregious ways. And it it reminded me of something. It reminded me of every, I suppose, for lack of a better way of describing it, every toxic person that had ever come into my life and attempted to kind of pull the wool over my eyes and use the things they knew about me against me and try and sort of take the rob me of my spirit, rob me of my agency, steal my heart, so to speak. And so in my imagination, I was wrestling with this idea, like, God, would the world be a better place? Would the universe be a better place if this person didn't exist anymore? And it's a really complicated thing because I don't have murderous intent. I don't wish ill really upon anyone, even people who I vehemently disagree with, whether it's like personally or politically. I don't think that that is the answer. But we are sort of um, we're evolving animals. We evolved from great apes, and before that, lesser apes. We're still animals. We still have what evolutionary biologists would call like a monkey mind. We have a lot of old evolutionary programming that's quite literally still clinging around back of the brainstem or at the bottom of the brainstem. And so a lot of things will well up in us when faced with deeply complex or angering situations where it's like there's and we need to find better ways of dealing with those old ways of responding to the world. And so I was dealing with this sort of complicated thing, and I found a place where I could deal with it in kind of a gentle and non-violent way, and that was in a dream. it was in a dream space. And so in the dream, this person no longer existed. And in the dream, I did a little like celebratory dance on their grave. And then I woke up from the dream and I was like, oh, this is really complicated, but it's not real. And so I was playing with this sort of complex idea. Is it a better universe if this person isn't in it? And so it's weird because just this morning I saw this headline that Kanye had made a video where he's like, he buried a Pete Davidson lookalike or something like this. And I was like, oh man, that's like, I feel like that's a little too far. I haven't seen the video yet, but like just the description of it, I was like, whoa, that's one step too far. But it's not terribly dissimilar from the idea I was playing with in A Better Universe. Just in my idea, it wasn't a literal thing. It was like, it was in a liminal space. It was somewhere in the realm of a dream. You know, we all have weird dreams, right? Everybody has dreams like, oh, that's not me. So how do we talk about those moments? So I just tried to talk about it a little bit in this song.
It's beautiful, man.
Mm-hmm.
From the outside looking in, I find that you are a very introspective person who is looking for answers on a spiritual level.
Mm-hmm.
What answers have you found that have satisfied your spiritual thirst on your journey?
Mm-hmm. Oh, the big questions. I love it. What answers have I found? You know, I suppose that one thing that I have learned that, you know, having been here for 46 years now, or going on 46 years, I found that whenever I think I found an answer, I need to be curious as to if it's an absolute. So what I found is the less, let me rephrase that. The more certain I feel about something, the more I need to stand back from it and try and remain agnostic about it. Certainty is something that is, to me, that's sort of a dangerous place to wander. The more, for myself, this is just for me, the more I have been able to play in the realms of uncertainty from not only a spiritual or metaphysical perspective, but in just day-to-day life. If I can learn to relax comfortably onto the bed of nails and learn to get a good night's sleep there, the better things are, because I don't feel like life offers us true certainty in the absolute sense. I feel like it is, there's a lot of chaos constantly. And if you can learn to kind of like admire that process from a bigger sense, from a wider spiritual sense, and be in awe of that, the happier you'll be. And there are ways to go about that. As I've been learning, there are ways that you can more comfortably sit amongst uncertainty. And one of them that's probably the most tried and true is to develop some kind of a meditation practice. You learn to sit quietly with your eyes closed and not let the chattering thoughts that occupy most of our day sort of like bedevil you or haunt you. You learn to sit amongst all of that chatter and then see the chatter and the thoughts and things more like clouds drifting by in a big blue sky. And then at a certain point, it's really wild. You learn to identify with the big blue infinite sky more than the actual clouds that are floating by. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So not to get too heady on you in our time, but I can't recommend enough for people to develop some type of a practice where they self-reflect and they sit quietly for short periods of time every day. It doesn't do bad things. That's all I'll say.
Awesome. You are a true artist. I mean, from books to paintings to drawings to videos to music. What is your most cherished piece of art? Whether it's a song, whether it's a video, whether it's a drawing, whether it's a conversation.
I like your questions, man. They're unexpected. I love being thrown unexpected questions. That's a really hard one though, because I value art, and more so than anything, the creative process so deeply that it's hard to even put words to it. I am uh, I'm humbled at the opportunity to be in creative process for as long as I have been. I'm truly, I'm just like overwhelmed with gratitude at the audience that Incubus has found over all these years and continued to have over all these years that have allowed us, each of us, to move into other areas of creativity and also still remain a band. And it's honestly, it's incredible. I every time I meet someone who approaches me or us in the band and says, "Oh God, I love that one song," or "I love you guys. I've been listening to you for years." There is an overwhelming sense of gratitude, and that I can't. It's hard to even describe. So I usually, under normal circumstances, I'll just kind of hug people, and I hope to be getting back to that as soon as possible. But all that being said, there is a piece of art that I have. Um, I've talked about it before, and it does have a kind of comical twist to it, but it's a painting. It's an oil painting that my mom did before I was born. She was in art school, and she was pregnant with my older brother, Darren. And the painting, the teacher wanted them to do a self-portrait of some kind. And so my mom thought it would be funny and ironic if she did a self-portrait of herself as the Virgin Mary, considering she was pregnant with my brother. And so it's this beautiful oil painting that she did that I have kept, and it's in my art studio, and I look at it literally every day. The reason it's so valuable to me, even beyond the fact that my mom painted it, it's objectively a beautiful piece of art. But my brothers and I spent a lot of time at our grandparents' house down in San Diego when we were growing up. So my mom's parents, and they kept that painting in the guest room that my brother and I used to sleep in. And when we would go visit, they would set up like sleeping bags and pillows on the floor for us. And my grandfather would come in and he'd play us songs on his guitar as we fell asleep. And that was also kind of most likely hugely impactful to me, to like slip into that sleep state, having someone that you loved and admired like playing beautiful Spanish songs to you. But on more than one occasion, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would look up at this painting of my mom as the Virgin Mary, and she's kind of like in one of these like classic like Renaissance poses. It looks like she's looking down at something. On more than one occasion, I woke up and the painting, the eyes were animated, looking down at me, and it would go back to sleep, Brandon. And I was like, ah, and I would pull the covers over my head and be like, whoa, whoa, and then peek out, and the eyes were like looking at me. I was like, and today I'm like, what the fuck was happening? I had no idea, having a weird nightmare or something. So I kind of quietly have carried that with me into the present. And then about 9 years ago or something, my younger brother, who was there, who was pretty young, he was probably 4 when this was happening. Like 9 years ago, we were talking about it and I was laughing and regaling him with this horrifying experience. And he goes, "You got to be kidding me. That same thing happened to me with that same painting." I was like, "Wait, what?" So we both had the same experience, but at different moments with this painting. So I keep this haunted, like possessed painting, and we tell my mom the story, and she just cracks up. But I don't know if she, it's like, what is happening there? So but I deeply value it as like as an object, as a creative object, because she painted it, but also it's probably haunted.
All right. Well, as we wind things down a little bit from the interview, I'm going to ask just a couple of more like different type of questions, just to get to know you more of a better, just so we can transcribe you better, so I can get a feel in my heart for who you are and who your art is. And so just 2 or 3 of these. What is your mom or dad's signature dish?
Signature dish. Oh, wow. My mom makes an amazing albondigas soup
Mm.
with, but instead of beef, um, I haven't eaten beef in over 30 years, but she does it with,
Even for albondigas?
yeah, but she does it with turkey, with ground turkey into the balls, and uses rice to bind it together. So that we
Mm.
rice turkey balls. But her albondigas is like, it's like Mexican penicillin. If you feel even a little bit sick, she'll make it, and so my whole life it's been like a staple. And my dad is less of a cook, but his signature dish is a baked potato with tuna. That's his signature dish.
Mhm. And your dad, he was a marble man, correct?
He was a Salem man. He
Oh,
was
Salem.
advertising Salem cigarettes in the would have been the mid 70s. So the year that I was born, he was the Salem cigarette model,
That's dope.
among other things. He's an engineering mind, but he like did some acting in the 70s and the 80s and some modeling and stuff. So yeah.
If you had a dream concert, you get to pick the bill, 4 people,
Oh my God.
4 artists, 4 acts that you're booking. Who would you pick? Alive or dead?
Wow, this is a big question. And I'm or Incubus is playing on it as well. Like we're on the
If
bill.
you want to, it's any 4 in the world.
All right, so I have to include Incubus.
Of course.
Would that be the 5th, or are we one of the 4?
You'll be one of the, well, let's make that the 5th.
Okay.
You headline it.
I would definitely have Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, Holly singer. I would, who was very influenced by Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. I would have Jeff Buckley perform. Wow, this is hard. I would say the Beastie Boys from kind of the Check Your Head era. And wow, I'm going to regret anything because there's like 50 bands that I'd want on the bill. But then as a last, I may be PJ Harvey.
Nice. Love it.
All those boys.
So I have two last questions.
Mhm.
This question right here is, if you walk into a room and it's everybody you've ever met in your entire life, alive or dead, who is the first person you're looking for?
Wow. An amazing question. I suppose I would look for my grandfather, my mom's dad, who I was telling you about before, who used to play guitar and sing to us as we fell asleep. He was kind of a major influence on my brothers and I, and we spent a lot of time with him growing up, but he used to take us to the San Diego Zoo, and he'd make us these little sandwiches, and he had like these special kind of like whistles he would do for us to bring us back to where he was. But he he was he was a really wild dude. He was definitely like a bona fide psychic. He like a clairvoyant.
No way.
Yeah, he had really interesting, almost like I guess I'll call them skills. He had these really interesting skills that he would share with my brothers and I around those types of things. But he also was like the sort of consummate storyteller. He had stories just as about everything, and he would gather my brothers and I around the kitchen table in the morning and at night before we went to bed. And he would like, in the morning, he would like give us all like a tiny splash of his coffee. We were like little kids, so we felt like we were part of the fold. And then at night, he'd have like a glass of beer. He would give us each like a little splash of the beer, so we felt like we were part of it. Like none of us liked it, but it was just like we're hanging out with like the dude, you know?
Yeah.
And in so many ways, he was just like a deeply loving, but also deeply influential person to us. So I'd say my grandfather.
I can see it in your eyes. When you
Mhm.
bring him up, there's something about your eyes that change.
For sure. He's a really remarkable guy. Like I can't sing his praises enough. He and there's all these wild sort of stories my mom has told me over the years. Like he was in the army, and he was a paratrooper, and he was in training. And at one point, during one of his last training exercises before he would have been deployed, he jumped out with the rest of his team, and his chute malfunctioned, and it opened up enough that when he hit the ground, he didn't die, but he was injured and went into a brief coma, and so ended up not getting deployed. So the likelihood is, if his parachute hadn't malfunctioned, like, my mom wouldn't have existed, and my brothers and I wouldn't have existed. And so there's these little, I'm sure every family that has ever existed has little moments in their kind of family history like that. But that's just one that when my mom told me that story, I was like, that's wild. That's really fascinating that life is so precious and unique and rare and fleeting like that, that something at any moment in time could have happened that made it so you didn't exist or I didn't exist. And imagine all of the instances in people's lives now, like right now, yours and mine, that will lead to our children or our children's children, that could lead them to exist or to not exist. It just makes it gives you a different perspective, I think, on the whole thing.
That's beautiful. Before I get to my last question, I want to say thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you for your team. Thank you for your thoughtful your answers.
Thanks for your questions too. They're great.
Thank you. And thank you for this album. This album is very beautiful. And I'm definitely going to listen to A Better Universe another 50 times before I go on. But thank you. Yeah. And my last question is, what is life teaching you right now?
Ooh. Move towards, not away from. There's so much that I need to and want to move towards more kind of more succinctly, that there are older anxious patterns that are rearing up in me that are like, don't go there, that's a scary place. And so I've been learning for quite a long time, but this COVID era, I guess we'll call it, has been teaching me to go more towards the things that frighten me and to recoil less from them, go towards them. And I've found over the course of my time here that most of the best stuff, I guess we'll call it, is right on the other side of what we're the most afraid of. So if we can move towards those things that we're afraid of, like, there's incredible, miraculous things right on the other side. So courage, I suppose, is the right term. Yeah. Courage.
Man, thank you again. Thank you to your team. It's been an amazing morning talking with you.
Nice talk to you too. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a good luck and have a good night.
Thank you.
Or a good day. Bye. Thank you guys.